I'd been working at the Dollar Tree for about 6 months, mostly closing shifts. It wasn't exactly exciting work. Ring people up, restock shelves, sweep floors. The best part was how quiet it usually was at night. Weeknights were the slowest, and sometimes I'd be the only one closing. That Tuesday, my coworker Jenna clocked out at 9. We both knew the place would be dead for the last hour. I didn't mind. I liked the calm after the dinner rush. The store lights felt softer somehow, and the faint hum of the ceiling fans was almost relaxing. I grabbed the broom and started sweeping near the candy aisle. Every so often a car would pass outside, headlights sliding across the glass front doors. I hoped no one else came in. I was already mentally counting down the 50 minutes until I could clock out. Around 9:40, the automatic doors slid open. A man walked in. He looked maybe mid-30s, wearing a faded red hoodie and jeans. The hood was down, but he had a baseball cap pulled low. He didn't look at me, didn't say hello, just turned sharply into the cleaning supplies aisle. I didn't think much of it. Some people just want to shop in peace. Still, I kept him in the corner of my mind as I went back to sweeping. 5 minutes later, I made the first closing announcement over the intercom. Attention Dollar Tree shoppers, we'll be closing in 10 minutes. Please bring your final items to the register. I glanced toward the aisle he'd gone into, but he wasn't there anymore. By 9:55, I made the second announcement. Still no sign of him. The store was so quiet I could hear my own footsteps echoing as I moved behind the counter. At 10 sharp, I said, "We are now closed. Please bring your items to the register." Nothing. I sighed, walked to the front and locked the doors so no one else could come in. The guy had to still be inside somewhere. It wasn't unusual for people to linger in the bathroom until closing, so I figured I'd check the back corner. The hallway near the break room always felt a little too quiet at night. Our bathrooms were back there along with the door to the storage room. As I rounded the corner, I froze. The man wasn't in the bathroom. He was standing halfway behind the storage room door, like he'd been waiting for me to come back here. He didn't move when I saw him. He just stood there, one shoulder hidden behind the storage room door, like he was trying to decide whether to come out or not. My first thought was that maybe he was looking for an employee to ask about something, but the way he was watching me, it didn't feel like a question was coming. His eyes followed every step I took, slow and steady, like he was memorizing the way I moved. Can I help you find something?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped fully into the hallway, cutting off the space between me and the bathrooms. Up close, I noticed his hands were empty. No basket, no items, like he hadn't been shopping at all. I forced a polite smile. "We're closed now, so you'll need to head to the front if you still want to buy anything." He just tilted his head a little, then walked past me without a word. I stood still until I heard his footsteps fade into the main part of the store. My stomach was tight. I wasn't scared exactly, not yet, but something about him felt off. I'd seen plenty of quiet customers before, but this guy's silence didn't feel shy. It felt deliberate. I made my way back to the counter, expecting him to head straight to the register, but when I got there, he was gone again. I leaned over the counter to look down the aisles. Nothing. Just rows of neatly stocked shelves under the buzzing fluorescent lights. The store felt bigger all of a sudden. The wrong kind of quiet. The kind where you know you're not actually alone. "Sir, we're closed. I need you to come to the front," I called out, my voice carrying across the empty space. No answer. I stepped out from behind the counter, checking the first 2 aisles. Nothing. Then I caught movement. Just a flash. Down by the seasonal section. I turned the corner slowly, but it was empty. No man. No sound. I was starting to think maybe I'd imagined it when something clattered behind me. A roll of wrapping paper hitting the floor. I spun around. He was standing 3 aisles over, just watching me. And this time, he smiled. The smile wasn't friendly. It was small, sharp, and held just a little too long. like he knew something I didn't. I stayed where I was, keeping the shelves between us. My voice came out tighter than I wanted. "You need to head to the front now. We're closed." He didn't move, didn't blink, just kept smiling. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed loud in the silence, and for a second it felt like the whole store was holding its breath. Finally, he took a slow step toward me, then another. The smile never left his face. I backed up until I was at the end of the aisle, then stepped sideways into the next one over. I could hear his footsteps following, unhurried. My heart was pounding now. I wasn't sure if I should try to force him out or just call the cops. I didn't want to make him snap, but something told me he'd already decided what he was going to do tonight. I moved toward the register, grabbing my phone from under the counter. Before I could even unlock it, something slammed onto the counter in front of me. A single item. A box of plastic cutlery. He was there again, standing way too close on the other side. I hadn't even heard him come up. I scanned it without saying a word, keeping my eyes on the little red light instead of his face. When I told him the total, he didn't hand me money. Instead, he reached into his hoodie pocket and slowly slid a folded piece of paper across the counter. I didn't touch it. "What's this?" He grinned. "Read it later." I told him again he needed to pay if he wanted the item. He didn't. He just stood there, then turned and walked away. Not toward the door, but deeper into the store again. My hands were shaking now. I opened the note. It was a phone number, and under it, "I've been here before. You didn't notice me that time." My chest went cold. I didn't remember seeing him before, but what if I had? I picked up the store phone and started dialing 911. But before the call could go through, I heard it. The click of the back room door. He was back there. The click of the back room door echoed through the empty store. That door wasn't supposed to be unlocked. Only employees had the key, which meant he either followed someone in before, or it had been left open by mistake. I set the phone down without ending the call, hoping the dispatcher could still hear if I said anything loud enough. My legs felt stiff as I moved toward the back hallway. "Sir, you can't be back there." My voice came out louder than I meant, shaking halfway through the sentence. No answer, just the faint shuffle of feet on concrete. I reached the hallway and froze. The door to the storage room was half open. From my spot, I could see shadows moving inside, slow, deliberate. "Look, I'm calling the police," I said, trying to sound like I had more control than I actually did. The movement stopped. Then, in the quiet, I heard his voice. Low, calm. "You don't have to be scared. I'm not here for the store." I gripped the corner of the doorway, leaning just far enough to peek in. He was standing near the back wall, his hands in his hoodie pocket, staring right at me. There was nothing in the room worth stealing, just boxes of cheap decorations and paper towels. "You should leave now," I said. My throat felt dry. Instead of leaving, he took a step closer. "You didn't remember me," he said, "but I remembered you." I stepped back into the hallway, putting space between us. "I'm serious, cops are on their way." He smiled again, not the same smug smile from before. This one was smaller, almost satisfied. Then, without warning, he ran past me, back into the store. I followed a few steps, just in time to see the front doors slide open as he left. I rushed to lock them, but before I could, he stopped just outside and turned around. Through the glass, we made eye contact. He tapped his pocket, where the note had been, then walked out into the dark parking lot. I stood there, heart racing, watching the lot until the flashing red and blue lights of a patrol car pulled in. 2 officers came inside, searching every aisle and checking the back room. Of course, he was gone. I gave them the note. One officer said they'd look into it and told me to be careful walking to my car. When they left, the store was quiet again. Too quiet. As I walked out to my car, I scanned the lot. No sign of him. But halfway home, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You remember me now? I wasn't planning on working at Dollar Tree for long. I took the job because it was close to campus, the hours were flexible, and they didn't ask too many questions during the interview. Most of my shifts were at night, helping close up. We'd lock the doors at 10:00, clean, restock shelves, and usually be out by 11:30. The team was small. It was usually me, the assistant manager Monica, and sometimes another part-timer depending on the night. It wasn't hard work, mostly quiet. One night, about a month into the job, Monica introduced a new guy to me. "This is Nate," she said. "He's helping out tonight, just got hired." He looked a few years older than me, early 30s maybe, thin, pale, with short hair and a kind of heavy stare. He didn't smile much, just nodded slowly. "Cool," I said. "I'm in aisle 4 tonight if you need anything." He didn't say anything back, just kept looking at me. I figured he was shy or maybe just awkward. Everyone's weird their first day. But something about the way he kept showing up near me felt off. I'd be stocking candy and suddenly realize he was at the end of the aisle, watching, not working, just standing there. When I moved to the cleaning supplies 10 minutes later, he showed up again. "You always work nights?" he asked quietly. "Yeah," I said, not looking up. "Mostly." He nodded slowly, then walked away. It wasn't threatening exactly. Just too quiet, too focused. Later, when I went to the back room to break down boxes, I passed him standing near the employee lockers. He wasn't doing anything, just holding his phone and looking at the door like he was waiting for someone. When I got off shift that night, I noticed something weird. There were only 3 cars in the lot, Monica's, mine, and one other. But when I walked to my car, the other car started. Headlights flared on. I didn't look to see who it was, I just got in, locked the doors, and drove off. It followed me until I pulled into a gas station. Then it kept driving. I told myself maybe it wasn't him, maybe I was just tired. But I didn't sleep great that night. The next day I checked the schedule. Nate wasn't on it. I asked Monica about it during our shift. "He's not coming back," she said casually. Said the hours didn't work for him. Just one shift. Still, later that night when I was on my break scrolling Instagram, I got a follow request. The username was just some random combo of letters and numbers, but the profile photo was of the Dollar Tree front door, taken at night. I clicked it. No posts, 0 followers, just that request. I didn't accept. I blocked it. Then I opened Snap. I had a message from an unknown account, no name, just, "You left the lights on in your car last night." I froze. The thing is, I remembered hitting the unlock button and seeing the inside lights glow as I got in. I never mentioned that to anyone. That night after shift, I asked Monica to walk me out. She laughed at first, but agreed. When we got to the parking lot, there was a car parked 1 row over. Lights off, engine running. I couldn't see the driver. "Creepy," Monica muttered. I drove straight home. Took a few wrong turns just to be sure I wasn't followed. I didn't get any more messages that night, but I started keeping a pocket knife in my glove box, just in case. A few nights later, things escalated. It was around 9:50. We were almost closed. I was wiping down the soda fridge near the register when I noticed someone standing outside near the window. He wasn't trying to come in, just standing there. I couldn't see his face clearly, but he was tall, wearing a hoodie. Same height and build as Nate. I tried to play it cool, but something about how still he stood made my skin crawl. When I looked again 2 minutes later, he was gone. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. After we locked up, I walked Monica to her car again, like we were both pretending not to be creeped out. When I got to my car, I found something stuck under my windshield. A receipt. From Dollar Tree. But not mine. It was from 2 nights ago. $125 total. The item? A roll of duct tape. On the back, someone had written in pencil, I like the way you smile when you bag things." My throat went dry. I showed it to Monica the next day. She looked pale. "You think it's him?" "I don't know," I said. But I did. She said she'd tell our district manager. I started taking different routes home, switched parking spots, started carrying pepper spray, and I stopped using my name tag. I never saw Nate again after that first shift, but I felt him. It was like he had pressed pause during that one night and decided to study everything: my face, my voice, where I park, the brand of gum I chew. One night I went in to grab snacks before my shift, off the clock, just picking up some gum and ibuprofen. The store was pretty empty. As I stood in the medicine aisle, I heard a soft tap from the other side of the shelf. I paused. Then I heard it again, like a single finger tapping the metal from behind the products. I slowly stepped back and peeked through the gap. Someone's eye was looking through, just one eye, staring right at me. I didn't scream. I didn't say anything. I just turned and walked quickly toward the register. Told Monica. She ran back to check. Whoever it was gone. We checked the security footage later. It glitched out for about 5 minutes during the time I was in the aisle. The camera facing the medicine section cut to static. That was 2 weeks ago. I've changed my number, locked down my socials, switched shifts. But every time I leave the store at night, I check my mirrors 3 times. Every time I walk to my car, I grip my keys like a weapon. And every time I see a tall guy in a hoodie standing too still, I feel like I'm back in aisle 4 again, wondering, what if he's not done yet? I've been working at the Dollar Tree on Westfield Avenue for about 3 months now. It's not the most exciting job, but it's close to my apartment, and the night shifts pay a little extra, so I can't complain too much. Most nights are the same. Stock the shelves, keep the aisles clean, and deal with a handful of late customers grabbing snacks or cleaning supplies. We close at 10 p.m., but it's pretty dead after 9. That night started normal. It was a Thursday, and I had the closing shift by myself since my manager left early for some family emergency. The store felt even quieter than usual. The soft hum of the old ceiling lights was the loudest thing in the place, and I could hear the fridge in the back kicking on and off. Around 9:40, I was restocking paper towels near the cleaning aisle when I noticed someone walk past the front windows. A tall guy in a dark hoodie. I figured he was just another last-minute shopper. A minute later, he walked in. No hello, no quick glance, just straight inside like he knew exactly where he was going. He didn't grab a basket or anything. Instead, he wandered. Slowly. He'd stop at random shelves, pick something up, then put it back without looking at the price. He moved like someone killing time, not actually shopping. I kept an eye on him, partly out of habit, partly because something about the way he moved was off. When he finally came to the register, he had 1 bottle of water. I rang it up, and he stared at me the whole time, like unblinking eye contact. His smile was small, but didn't feel friendly. "You're here alone?" he asked, almost casually. Yeah," I said, swiping his water. "Just until close." He nodded slowly. "Quiet night, huh?" I just smiled and handed him his change. He stood there for a second longer, still smiling, then walked out. A few minutes later, I went to lock the doors at closing time. The parking lot was empty except for 1 car at the far end. I swear I saw the same guy sitting inside, headlights off. The next day, I was scheduled for an afternoon shift. I didn't think much about the guy from last night until, halfway through stocking the candy aisle, I spotted him again. Different hoodie this time, but same tall frame, same slow walk. He bought nothing, just walked around, occasionally glancing at me. When I finally asked if he was looking for something, he shook his head and said, "Just browsing." After he left, I went on my break and checked my phone. I had a new Instagram follow request from an account with no profile picture, no posts, and a weird username. Just a bunch of numbers. Something about it made me think of him. I ignored it. Later that evening, I ran to the grocery store down the street after work. While I was in line, I saw him again. No shopping cart, no basket, just standing by the entrance, watching. When I walked past, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "You close tonight?" I didn't answer, just kept walking. By the third encounter, I was starting to feel on edge. I told my coworker Melissa about him and she brushed it off. Probably just a lonely guy, don't freak out. But that night, I learned something that made my skin crawl. Around 9:15, he came in again. Same slow, aimless walk. I tried to stay busy behind the counter, but when he reached the register, he leaned in slightly and said, "I'm surprised you're still here after last time." I asked what he meant, and he said, "Didn't they tell you this store's supposed to close early now, like 9 o'clock? I laughed nervously. "We've always closed at 10. He shook his head. "No. I used to work here. It's not safe to be here after 9. That was the part that threw me. My manager keeps all employee records locked up, and I'd never heard his name before. When I asked what year he worked here, he avoided the question and just smiled. When I closed that night, he wasn't in the lot. But as I was walking home, I noticed footsteps behind me. Slow, steady, matching my pace. I turned quickly. Nothing. The street was empty. 2 days later, it escalated. I was on register when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I checked during a lull and froze. A text from an unknown number. "You looked tired tonight." I hadn't told anyone my number except for work contacts. I glanced toward the front door and there he was, leaning against the glass outside, sipping a bottle of water. Same blank smile. I called my manager in the back, but by the time he came out, the guy was gone. That night I kept all the lights in my apartment on. I checked the locks twice. As I sat on my couch, trying to distract myself with TV, my phone buzzed again. "Don't worry, I won't come inside." No reply, no name, just silence after that. But every time I walk past the big glass windows at Dollar Tree, I can't help scanning the parking lot. Sometimes I think I see a dark shape sitting in a car at the far end, and I wonder if he's still waiting. I used to work the night shift at Dollar Tree, stocking shelves. It wasn't the most exciting job, but the pay was decent and it was quiet most of the time. My shift started at 10 p.m. and ended around 7 a.m., so I got used to a weird sleep schedule. Most of the crew was friendly enough. We'd work in our sections, talk during breaks, then go home. One night, a new guy joined the team. His name was Mason. He looked around mid-30s, pale, a little lanky, with this unshaven, patchy beard. When our supervisor introduced him, he gave me this slow smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I figured maybe he was just tired. First night shift and all. At first, we didn't talk much. I was in the grocery section. He was in seasonal items. But around 2 a.m., he walked over to where I was stocking cereal and started asking random questions. How long I'd worked there, where I lived, what I did outside work. It wasn't super weird at first, just small talk, but he kept going even when I gave short answers. The thing that stuck with me was how he remembered everything I said, repeating it back like he was making a mental list. When our break came, I went to the break room. He followed. Even though there were plenty of empty tables, he sat right across from me and stared while I scrolled through my phone. I thought maybe he was just trying to be friendly, so I didn't say anything. But the way he looked at me, it wasn't like he was waiting for me to speak. It was more like he was studying me. At the end of the shift, I walked to my car in the dimly lit parking lot. I saw him a few rows away, leaning on his own car, just watching me. When I got in my car and started it, he smiled and waved. I waved back out of politeness, but something about it made me uncomfortable. The next night, he showed up again. The second night, I told myself I was probably overthinking things. Maybe Mason was just socially awkward. Still, I decided to keep things casual and stick to my own section. Around midnight, I went to grab more stock from the back room. While I was scanning boxes, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Mason. He leaned against the door frame and said, You didn't tell me if you have roommates or live alone. I froze for a second. I didn't remember telling him anything about that, but maybe I had. I laughed it off and said, I live with a friend. It wasn't true. I lived alone. But something in me didn't want him to know that. He grinned. Cool. I figured you for the independent type. He stayed there for a moment too long, just watching me cut open boxes before finally walking off. Later, during break, I noticed him scrolling through his phone. My name popped up on his screen in the search bar. I only saw it for a second before he tilted the phone away. I didn't even know how he'd found my last name. I hadn't given it to him. When the shift ended, I left quickly, pretending to check something on my phone as I walked to my car. I didn't see his car in the lot, which was weird, because I hadn't seen him leave. I thought maybe he'd parked farther away. When I got home, I opened Instagram and saw a new follow request. It was from an account with no profile picture, no posts, but the username was my full name followed by "I'm watching." No joke. I blocked it right away, but my stomach stayed in knots for hours. By the third night, I started parking in a different part of the lot and leaving right when my shift ended. But that didn't stop him. That night, I walked out to find him leaning on the hood of my car. He didn't move when I walked up. Just stood there with his arms crossed, grinning like this was some kind of inside joke. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "You're on my car." "Yeah," he said. "I figured I'd wait for you. Didn't want you walking out alone." It was weird because the parking lot was almost empty, and we'd all just clocked out together. I hadn't seen him near me inside, so he must have rushed out here just to wait. I unlocked my car, hoping he'd get the hint, but he stayed put. "You didn't answer my follow request," he said. I forced a smile. "I don't really use social media much." He said, tilting his head. "That's not true." That made my chest tighten. I didn't respond, just got in my car. He stepped back slowly, like he wanted me to see that he wasn't forcing me to stay, but his eyes didn't leave mine until I pulled away. On the drive home, I kept checking my mirrors. A few blocks from my apartment, I noticed headlights 2 cars back. Same shape as his, but I couldn't be sure. I pulled into a gas station to see if the car would pass me. It didn't. It pulled in too, parking at a pump a few spaces away. I didn't get out. I just sat there pretending to look at my phone until the other car drove off. Only then did I head home. When I got inside, I locked the door and checked my phone. 2 new messages from an unknown number. "You drive kind of fast. Good thing I know where you live now." I didn't sleep that night. I kept the lights off and sat by the window listening for any noise outside. Around 3 a.m., I thought I saw movement near the edge of the parking lot, but it was too dark to be sure. The next shift, I considered calling in sick, but I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of thinking he'd scared me off. Big mistake. Because that night, he didn't just wait for me in the lot. He followed me inside. When I walked into Dollar Tree that night, Mason was already there, leaning on a cart near the entrance like he'd been waiting. He didn't clock in right away, just fell in step with me as I walked toward the break room. "You weren't online last night," he said. I didn't answer. I just went to my locker and pretended to dig for something. He stood behind me close enough that I could smell his cheap cologne. "I like your apartment," he said quietly. "The curtains in your bedroom are kind of thin, though. You should fix that." I froze. My throat went dry. I wanted to turn around and tell him to stay the hell away from me, but something in the way he said it, calm, almost helpful, made my skin crawl more than if he'd yelled. The rest of the shift, I stayed near other coworkers. Every time I looked up, Mason was somewhere in my line of sight. He wasn't stocking shelves. He wasn't even pretending to work, just watching. Around 4 a.m., I asked my supervisor if I could leave early. She didn't ask questions, probably could tell I wasn't feeling right, and I headed straight for my car. The lot was almost empty. My stomach dropped when I saw his car parked only 2 spaces away from mine, lights off. I didn't see him inside, but that didn't make me feel any better. I got in my car, locked the doors immediately, and started driving. I didn't even go straight home. I drove in circles for 20 minutes, taking random turns, just to see if anyone followed. I didn't notice any headlights sticking behind me, so I finally went home. I was unlocking my apartment door when my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Took you long enough to get here. I spun around, scanning the dark lot behind me. No movement, no sound, just still cars and shadows. I rushed inside, locked every door, and sat in the living room with the TV on just for noise. I thought about calling the police, but what could I even prove? Around 5:30, I checked the peephole. Down the hall, at the very end near the stairwell, someone was standing. I couldn't tell if it was him. They weren't moving. Just standing there, facing my direction. When I checked again 5 minutes later, the spot was empty. I never saw Mason at work again after that. No explanation, no notice. He was just gone from the schedule. But sometimes, when I'm coming home late and the lot is quiet, I still check my mirrors before I get out, because I don't think he's really gone. I started working at Dollar Tree the summer after I dropped out of community college. Not for any big dramatic reason, I just didn't know what the hell I was doing, and my grades tanked. So I moved back in with my mom and picked up the first job I could find. The only thing available was the night shift at the Dollar Tree a couple miles from our place. It wasn't a 24-hour store or anything, but they needed someone to close up, clean, and restock a few nights a week. 6 wire to 11:30 p.m. Pretty chill most nights. Not a lot of customers past 9, and the manager, Carla, left early unless there was an inspection coming up. Usually it was just me and one other closer. About 3 weeks in, Carla introduced me to a new guy named Marcus. Said he'd be doing closing shifts with me going forward. He was maybe mid-30s, real quiet, tall as hell, with thick glasses and dark hair that looked kinda greasy no matter what. He didn't say much that first night. Just nodded and followed Carla around while she showed him how to clock in, where the broom closet was, stuff like that. I didn't think much of him at first. I've worked with weird people before. As long as they do their job, I don't care. But it got weird fast. The first red flag was how he never took off his jacket, like ever. Even when it was hot and stuffy inside. Just this bulky black zip-up thing like he was hiding something underneath. He didn't sweat. He didn't complain. He just wore it like a second skin. One night, about a week after he started, I caught him staring. I was wiping down the registers, and when I looked up, there he was, standing halfway down the candy aisle, just staring in my direction. Not moving. Not blinking. When I called out like, "You good, man?" He didn't answer at first. Then he blinked a few times and said, "Yeah, just thinking." Thinking about what, I wanted to ask. But I didn't. I just went back to cleaning. A few nights later, I came in and found him already inside. That was weird because we weren't supposed to clock in until 6. I asked him who let him in, and he just mumbled something about having a key. Carla never mentioned giving him one. Stuff started disappearing after that. Nothing big. A box cutter, some batteries, my hoodie. Carla thought it was kids shoplifting, but I wasn't so sure. One night I found Marcus standing by the stockroom door holding my missing hoodie. When I asked him about it, he said, "Oh, I found it on the floor. Thought it was mine." I didn't say anything. Just took it and walked away. But that night, when I got home and pulled it on before bed, I noticed something weird. Inside the pocket was a receipt I didn't recognize. A Dollar Tree receipt, but not one I printed. The timestamp read 2:37 a.m. We close at 9. I didn't tell Carla about the receipt. I don't know why. Maybe I thought it would sound dumb, or maybe I didn't want to make things worse with Marcus. But after that night, I started paying more attention. Marcus would sometimes disappear during shift. I'd be mopping the back aisles, and when I turned around, he was gone. Not in the stockroom, not out back, just gone. Then 10 minutes later, He'd be standing by the registers like he'd been there the whole time. He also started asking weird questions. Stuff like, "You live alone?" Or, "What time do you usually get home?" Harmless on their own, I guess. But the way he asked, like he already knew the answers, made my skin crawl. One night I stayed late to help Carla with inventory. She offered to drive me home. As we were walking out, I saw Marcus standing across the parking lot, half hidden behind the dumpster, just watching. Carla didn't notice. I pretended I didn't either. That weekend, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Just one sentence. "You looked cold last night." I blocked the number. A few days later, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw a photo on a random account with no profile picture. It was my house, taken from across the street at night. My bedroom light was on. I felt sick. I told Carla I needed to switch shifts. She said the schedule was tight, but she'd try. I didn't mention Marcus. I just said I was having trouble sleeping, which was true. Every creak in the house started to sound like footsteps. Every passing car made me flinch. Then, one night, I found something in the break room. A little folded piece of paper wedged behind the microwave. My name was written on the outside in black Sharpie. Inside, it just said, "You shouldn't lock your window." That night, I pushed my dresser in front of the window. Carla finally gave me a few morning shifts, said I could come in early to help with truck unloads. I jumped at it. I didn't care if it meant being up at 5 a.m. For a while, things felt better. I didn't see Marcus for 2 weeks, didn't hear from him, didn't get any more notes or texts. Then, on a slow Monday morning, Carla asked me to grab some toilet paper from the overstock shelves in the back. The overstock area is just this narrow little hallway behind the main aisles. You have to duck past a hanging curtain and squeeze between shelves full of bulk packs of paper towels and laundry detergent. As I was reaching for the TP, I heard something. Breathing. Not loud, just this slow, steady inhale-exhale coming from the far corner. I froze. "Carla?" I said, even though I knew it wasn't her. The breathing stopped. I dropped the pack and backed out fast. When I looked behind the shelves, there was no one there. But tucked into the stack of cleaning supplies was another note. This one just said, "You look better in black." That was the color of the hoodie I wore last Friday. I went straight to Carla. I told her everything. The staring, the texts, the pictures, the notes. Her face went pale. She sat down hard in her office chair and didn't say anything for a full minute. Then she said, "I never gave Marcus a key. He's not even on the schedule anymore." "What?" "He stopped showing up 2 weeks ago. I tried calling him, but his number's dead. I figured he quit." "No," I said. "He's been here. I've seen him." She shook her head. "You haven't." The cops came that afternoon. I showed them the notes, the photo, the weird receipt. They took a report, said they'd look into it. But I could tell they weren't taking it seriously. No crime, no threat, just creepy stuff. Carla offered to let me take some time off. I said, "Yeah, thanks, I needed it." But that night, around 1 a.m., I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the breathing, the back hallway, the note. So I went back to the store. I know how that sounds. But something in me needed to see it, needed to know if he was still there. I parked across the street and just watched for a while. The store was dark, closed, empty, but I could see movement inside, just barely. A shadow slipping between aisles, a flicker of something behind the register. Then the side door opened. Marcus stepped out, calm as ever, zipping up his jacket. He didn't look around, just walked into the lot, crossed the street and stopped right next to my car. I couldn't breathe. He leaned down, looked straight through the window at me and smiled. A real smile. Not creepy, not forced. "I told you," he said softly. "You looked cold." Then he walked away. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't seen him since. But every night before bed I checked the window. and every morning there's a Dollar Tree receipt taped to the glass. Different items, same timestamp, 2:37 a.m. I used to work the closing shift at Dollar Tree, the one off Willow Road. It wasn't exciting, but it paid, and the hours kind of worked for me. I was in community college, mostly online classes, so working 5 p.m. to close felt like a decent compromise. Plus, it was usually quiet after 9. Fewer customers, just a couple of coworkers restocking or zoning shelves. We'd close at 10, and I'd usually be out by 10:30 unless the store was a mess. Most nights I was alone up front while the others handled aisles or did go-backs. Nothing too weird ever happened. Sometimes we got people acting sketchy, shoplifters, or someone yelling about expired coupons, but nothing that stuck with me. Then in April, this new guy started, Derek, mid-20s I guess. Wore all black, had a shaved head and heavy bags under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. But he was chill. Kind of funny actually. The first few shifts we worked together, we just talked about random stuff. Music, old cartoons, junk food. He said he'd done retail before, so he picked things up fast. Still, something about him felt off. Like he was too calm, too quiet. Sometimes I'd catch him just standing still behind the register when no one was around, staring at the security monitor screen like he was watching something that wasn't there. But I figured maybe he was just spaced out. The first time he weirded me out was subtle. It was like 9:50 and this last-minute customer came in. A woman with her kid, looking for poster boards. Derek muttered, "Hate when they do that." But in this way that didn't sound annoyed. It sounded satisfied, like he was glad they were still in the store. He ended up helping them find what they needed, all smiles. But after they left, I saw him watching the security feed again, just silent. That night when we were locking up, he asked, "Do you ever get the feeling someone's watching you in here? Like when you're alone?" I laughed it off. "That's just the cameras, man." He didn't laugh, just said, "Yeah, right." I should have trusted the gut feeling I had right then. Something wasn't right about Derek, but it was small, a little thing, easy to ignore. And that's how it started. About a week later, I started getting Instagram DMs from a random account. No name, just a black profile picture. The messages weren't threatening at first. They were actually pretty normal. "You were fast at restocking the candy tonight," or "Nice hoodie, green looks good on you." I thought it was a customer. Maybe someone shy who saw me in the store and found me online. It was creepy, sure, but not dangerous. Yet. I didn't respond, just blocked the account. But the next day, a different account messaged me. Same kind of stuff. "You always leave right at 10:40, huh?" This time I replied, "Who is this?" No answer. That night at work, I couldn't focus. Every time I passed an aisle, I'd glance down it. I checked behind the end caps. I even looked outside through the front windows a few times. Nothing. Then Derek walked up behind me while I was organizing the gum display. I jumped. He laughed. "You good, man?" "Yeah, just tired." He nodded. "I get it. Night shifts mess with your head." Then he said something that made my stomach drop. "People see more than you think when they're quiet. Ever notice that?" He didn't look at me when he said it. He just kept walking toward the stockroom, like he didn't expect a reply, like he already knew something. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about the cameras in the store, who had access to them, who could see what. I was still trying to tell myself it wasn't Derek, but part of me already knew it was. A couple nights later, I stayed late after closing to help our manager count inventory. Derek was off, thankfully. The place felt more relaxed without him. Around 11:15, I headed out alone. The lot was mostly empty, just my car and one other, a black sedan parked 2 rows down. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe a late-night employee from the store next door. But as I got in and started the engine, my phone buzzed. New message, no profile pic, no username I recognized. I liked your red backpack tonight. I froze. My backpack was in the back seat, barely visible from the outside. Another message. You're not alone. I whipped around. No one was in the back seat. I looked out the windows, still empty. But when I backed out of the parking spot, I saw the sedan's lights flash. It turned on, slowly pulled out behind me. I panicked and took a random turn out of the lot. The sedan followed. I made another turn, still behind me. I ran 2 red lights getting home. I parked 3 blocks away from my building, ditched my car, and walked the rest of the way, checking over my shoulder the entire time. No one was there. Next morning, I told my manager. She asked if I had a stalker. I said maybe. She suggested I talk to the cops, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to seem paranoid, or maybe I was scared of what they'd find. That night at work, Derek was back. He looked at me, smiling like always. "You get home okay last night?" he asked. I hadn't told anyone I left late, not even my manager. That's when I knew for sure. After that, I started keeping pepper spray in my pocket. I stopped walking to my car alone. I parked under the lights. I changed my social media usernames. The messages stopped, but the tension didn't. Derek kept acting normal at work, friendly, chill. But every now and then, he'd say something that made my skin crawl. Like when I mentioned I lived off Oak Street, and he said, "Yeah, nice area. Quiet, real quiet at night." Or when I asked why he worked nights, and he said, "People are less guarded after dark. You see who they really are." Eventually, I told the manager I wanted fewer closing shifts. I didn't say why. She agreed. My schedule shifted. One night, a week after my last shift with Derek, I got home around 7. My roommate wasn't back yet. I went to the kitchen, grabbed something to drink, and glanced out the front window. There was a black sedan parked across the street. No one inside. Lights off. Engine off. Just parked. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't move. Eventually, I closed the blinds. Tried to convince myself it wasn't his, that I was imagining it. But I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, the car was gone. I don't know if Derek still works at Dollar Tree. I quit a few weeks later. Told them I needed more time for school. Sometimes I walk fast past parked cars. Sometimes I check my rearview mirror too many times. Sometimes I feel watched, even in my own apartment. And sometimes late at night, I still get the urge to peek through the blinds. Just to make sure that car isn't there, just to make sure he isn't.